Hi, we've reached the third week of second semester, and this video is to go over what you'll be working on this week in computer science principles. You have 4 new lessons. Please look at these lessons in Google Classroom before you go to Code High School to make sure you see which vocabulary words I'd like you defining as you watch the videos in Code High School. There are no extra worksheets to turn in this week, but I really appreciate it when you come back to Google Classroom and turn the assignment in. That way I know you're ready to be graded in Code High School. The first lesson is top-down design, which is the concept of thinking about and planning out your program before you even put any code down on paper. It has you designing the small chunks that you might need to be successful in getting your program to work the way you would like it to work. There's one coding exercise, one debugging exercise, and one free response reflection that you'll just write right inside of the Code High School editor. The second lesson is in commenting, and I'm going to pull up that example really quick. There's 2 different methods for commenting in JavaScript. The first is a multi-line comment that starts with a forward slash and an asterisk and ends with an asterisk and a forward slash. Everything in between these 2 symbols is a multi-line comment. Remember, comments are just for the human reader. They don't affect the flow of the code at all. A single line comment is designated with 2 forward slashes. Single line comments become really handy when you're trying to troubleshoot your code. If I wanted to comment out just one line of code to see what would happen, I could just put these 2 comments in and the interpreter would skip that line of code, but I wouldn't have to delete it and type it in later. The SuperCarol lesson has you just writing programs using SuperCarol, who actually knows a few more commands. You'd no longer have to define a turn right function or define a turnaround function. Those are 2 new commands that Carol knows when you're in the SuperCarol environment. Things are getting pretty exciting when we start to use for loops. For loops are a way to repeat your code for a given number of times. You only use a for loop when you know exactly how many times you want to repeat or iterate. The way a for loop is written in JavaScript is the word for, parentheses, and then we define a counter variable. Most of the time we use the counter variable I, which is short for iteration or repetition. The I equals 0 is saying my count is going to start at 0. The semicolon is the same as making a line return in your code. So it's saying end of the line. Now we're going to loop as long as I is less than 9. It will not loop up to 9. It will loop as long as I is less than 9. And then here's another stop. And then I plus plus is saying increment I by 1 each time it loops around. Then you have your parentheses and your opening curly bracket. Everything inside of these 2 curly brackets are the body of your for loop. But that is the code that will be repeated, in this case, for 8 times. I like to think of a for loop like this. You have a start, which in this case is 0. You have a stop, which tells you how long to loop, what you're looping up to, and you have a step. What are you increasing by? I plus plus is just the shortcut of saying I is going to be itself plus 1. Have fun with these for loops. Be sure you look at your docs if you need a little bit of extra help in setting those up. This is what it would look like in your block view. If you like block view, the for loop is in the control flow, and it already has the iterative variable blocks in there for you, and you would just type how many times, or what your start is, how many times you want to loop, and what your iterative variable name is in here. A word about the block view. If you prefer block coding to typing it out with your text syntax, you can change your default in your IDE by clicking on your name up in the top and going down to Account Settings. Once you're in Account Settings, click up on IDE, and IDE you can click this that has Show Blocks by Default. You can also turn on the autocomplete, which if you would close out syntax. So if you have an opening parentheses, it would close it out for you, which comes in handy sometimes in coding. So have a good week, and don't be afraid to reach out to me if you need any assistance. And please pay attention to your inbox up here. Make sure you're looking at the little blue dots. If I send you a message, I'm really trying to just help you with your code if you seem to be stuck. Okay, have a good week.